Now, I do know for AI that we're using, everybody's talking about it today, has been around for 50 years, right, in some kind of form. Big mainframe computers, large language models. Now it's in the hands of individuals. ChatGPT first came out, was it 2.5 years ago, I think? I've been a user from day one because once it was available, I'm going to use it to make my life easy. Just like I use the phone to make my life easy or use calculators to make my life easy. Why would you waste time doing whatever else that is replacing to do? So you can then focus on what we're designed to do, which is to be tapping into our hearts and our creativity. I think I saved 1,000 hours. It's insane what it can do for me.
I'm here with my buddy Raju. And I gotta say, Raju, it is always a pleasure to hang out with you and to get a chance for us to connect. The greatest part about this is Raju and I have been friends for the last few years, and I literally just had to ask him how to pronounce his last name. So we are gonna try this one more time. Pajwani.
Okay, good. You're 80% there.
I what?
You're 80%. No, it's Panjwani. You got it.
Okay, cool. All right, so we're good. But Raju, look, man, I gotta say, it's an absolute blast to have you on the show. And along those lines, man, what got you interested in the intersection of humanity and technology?
Oh boy. See, humanity is all the struggle that we all pursue. Like, what are we? What are we doing in this world? So for me, finding the connection with ourselves and then knowing that, having experienced the fact that we're all connected in some ways, that we have common feelings. We all know how we think about certain things and feel about certain things, more about the environment. But then we also know that the light's shining, but we just don't know if we're seeing the light. So the light of humanity is always shining on us. We just have to connect with it. And so I feel there is a fundamental way that, before, I joke about this always, that before there were telephones, there was telepathy, right? So you were able to conjure up somebody in your thought process or heart and go, I haven't talked to that person or seen them in a while. And then lo and behold, they're there, right? That's happened to all of us. I'm sure at some point in time they go, I was just thinking about you, and then you call me, or all of those things, whether they call you or they show up in your presence. So I think there's a lot to it. And then all technology and science does is really discover all that exists already. It just takes different forms, maybe telephones, maybe AI, run the whole gamut.
I mean, it's a fascinating connection to make that, at one point we were basically using that telepathy and that intuitive kind of connection to people.
Right.
Um, and now, we have the ability to pick up the phone and call anybody around the world. And like, I know I was on the phone with people from Africa and also from Eastern Europe this morning,
Mm-hmm.
and making connections that we would never have, made earlier on. But leaning
A
into this,
miracle, right? That we could actually have a video conversation like this. It's insane.
and 20 years ago, right? Like this was the talk of the Jetsons,
That's
right?
right.
Like this is, we saw this in cartoons and then now we're doing it. The other fascinating one that I always look at is, I was growing up with the age of cable, and you're like, wow, we have 100 different television shows that we could watch at any one time and yet find nothing to watch. And now we have millions upon millions of pieces of content that are at our fingertips, and we do everything in our ability to kind of like separate ourselves from it as well because of the intellectual damage that it's doing
That's right.
to just suck our attention into that spot. How do you see like the role of technology evolving in your daily life and the daily lives of the people around you?
Well, I want to just go back to one thing before I answer that question.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So in the quantum space, as whether it was the Bible and or before that the scriptures that were written, I mean, a lot of these images of what you described about the Jetsons actually existed, right? So it was in the realm of possibility that this sort of stuff would come true. But whether it was in the hands of common people like us, like it is starting to do today, and this was 20 years ago not common, and here you are. You could be, the phone, the video, FaceTime, all that stuff just happened, like started 10, 15 years ago, and is taken to a different level. So I still believe that we haven't discovered who we really are still. So we'll continue to discover who we are. As I said, the form that it takes, like, oh, it's a phone or it's a Zoom or whatever it is, will change. Your question about how am I using technology, or how does it affect my life today?
I think let's go with the how you're using it. That seems like a bit more creative avenue.
I think for those that know me well for the last however many years, I have always liked to test technology. I'm not a technologist, a coder, or a creator. I'm just a big user and see what it's capable of doing, and I experiment and see if I can use it. Um, I would couldn't tell you the first thing about how does this work. Now I do know for AI that we're using, everybody's talking about it today, has been around for 50 years, right, in some kind of form. Um, Big mainframe computers, large language models. Now it's in the hands of individuals, and it can be dangerous, as people say, or not. So for me, when the ChatGPT first came out, was it 2.5 years ago? I think I've been a user from day one because once it was available, I'm going to use it to make my life easy, just like I use the phone to make my life easy, or use calculators to make my life easy, because it immediately accelerates you into not what's available today, but why would you waste time doing, you know, whatever else that is replacing to do, so you can then focus on what we're designed to do, which is to be tapping into our hearts and our creativity. So I use it all the time. So somebody asked me like, "Oh, can you tell me how much time you saved, on such and such year?" And I go, "So I do it. I did a back of the envelope calculation. I think I saved 1,000 hours 2024, and about 750 the year before. It's insane what it can do for me. Now you just have to be smart about how you're using it, and that's now the other extreme. The pendulum swinging, like every Tom, Dick, and Harry is using it. I go, it's so obvious what you're doing. I'm not. And then it's just like, well, now you have to be figure out how to separate yourself from the shaft.
So, what are the aspects that you see as being like more human in regards to like the stuff that you wouldn't want to be delegating to AI? Or are there any bounds to that question?
What could I delegate? I mean, everything I can delegate, I will. Whether it's part of my workflow and programming it to get to know me. Obviously, we don't have to program, but to instruct it in a way that brings you really tailored responses. And it's increasingly shocking by the week what it comes out with for me, right? And I would say, "Where did you come up with that?" And it goes, "Well," so it gives me all the references with my work, and it's quite crazy. I do know there are certain things that bother me about it, which is like the standard responses and the contrasts and the dashes and the this and that. So you just have to make sure that you don't be stupid about just simply copying and sending it to the world. But I actually spend a lot of time correcting it and then instructing it, hoping that it picks up the next time. So that's a struggle, but it's not a big struggle. It's just, but look at the amount of time I save, right?
Well, no, and that's entirely it, right? Like it's an investment in future time savings to
Yeah.
be looking at it. Do you see that you've changed how you're engaging with technology in order to embrace it the way that you have? Because like you're saying, like you saved 700 hours in a year.
Yeah.
That's almost half of, well, it's about a third of a working year for most people.
Yes, which means I'm adding more things that I needed that I couldn't have done without that saving of time. So, I had this podcast that I have that I used to spend hours per episode. Uh, Besides, like you're doing this recording and then doing all the things that go with it, and you still, you know, no matter what you do, you can use the AI, but you still have to do certain things to it to make sure it's authentic to your message. So I just learned to program it in a way that makes sense for me, all the show notes and all the things, very easy. So I've always been, I'm not saying I'm just a geeky guy. For me, using technology, no matter what's available, I'll use it. And I throw it out because if I'm using images or I'm using, uh, I have a weekly newsletter, and used to take me forever to write everything. So now there's a thematic to it, and the picture or the images, I don't need to spend a lot of time on it. And it's just like instructive, and I can schedule it. I can do lots of things that I never did before. So I have more time to be creative with subjects, topics, my own writing. I dictate now oftentimes what I'm thinking and feeling on the move, walking, whatever. And it's simply I say, hey, please fix this and show me what you can do with a post or an article, what have you, all the time,
I think we're getting to the point where you're having like your own personal assistant that's
oh
walking around
God,
with you. Um,
all the time. And
Absolutely
you're
amazing.
combining you have devices like your phone, or you have all the different apps, and I test many apps, and I go, well, this one works, that one doesn't work for me. I'll just, because there's too many, also too much overload as well, right? Because what should I use for this one? What should I use for that one? Like, and then who's going to tell you which is the right one for you? You just
Oh,
have
and
to.
that's a lot of trial and error. Um, Knowing you and knowing both the type of person that you are, like you're very much involved in your own self development and the reinventing of yourself, and something that we have connected on, many times. But
Mhm.
one thing that I'm looking at is like it requires, in order to work with these tools, it's going to require that you understand yourself very well and understand your own purpose, where you're going, because we're now generating probably more content than we've ever generated in the past, or have the
Mhm.
capability to do. And then additionally, like we need to provide direction to the tool. So how has your self development evolved given your usage of these tools as well?
Well, you know, I've been committed to self development for primarily initially to speak in public because I was scared to death at the age of 23 or 24, whatever it was. Um, so I made a conscious decision to invest in myself, whatever that meant, to develop myself. Fast forward 30 years in corporate America, and there were always corporate training, and they gave you lots of training. But I knew the purpose was to, while to empower me or make a better leader or better manager, it was still to the primary benefit of the company. And in spite of that, I still invested myself extra to do something beyond. So that's just my nature. It's not for everybody. Doesn't do that. That's okay. Which is why I made this mission that when I had leadership roles in Morgan Stanley or prior to that at Price Waterhouse, it was always about how can we all collectively work in a way that makes everybody better. And you have to start with you because there's no other way to do that. So I'm trying to answer your question really, because, in the sense that it's like if you're not going to invest in you, who is going to invest in you, right? Uh, they're investing in you to make you a better leader for them, but you have to go beyond that to be able to say, okay, what have I done with this? So I think it's a lifelong process. You never get it done. So for me, it was all more about public, being confident and doing all that. And I still spend time on and money on that because what else is there? Because it's a deeper level. It's a next level. Did I, is that,
I
sorry, you,
mean, yeah, you did all right.
no, your question was specific. And I think I lost one part of the question as far as where,
How has your self-development exercises and practices, I
ah,
guess, changed in regards to like now having this reflection point?
that's good.
Because I can say for myself, like, you can go to therapy once a week, right? Or you can go multiple times a week, but you basically got to break your habit and break your day, and
Yeah.
it's kind of an exercise in that regard.
Hmm.
But for myself, I'm using AI that I have running locally to basically pretend that it's Carl Jung. And so now I can digest and work on things as they come
Right.
up and see. But then we also have like AI that we've developed for the company, in
Yes.
which all the employees can interact, and it has a company voice to it, it has
Yes.
a persona, and additionally it has like its own like developmental milestones that it's looking
Yes.
to work on with each employee, that the employee has
Right.
contributed to and said like, hey, here's how I'm working, so it can direct it. And so instead of having like a once a week kind of time for development and thought, and you're preparing, we're going towards near real time
Yeah.
ability to kind of like see a situation, interact with the situation, and help
Hmm.
the person grow in the
Got it.
direction that they want to grow.
So for me, it's a companion. I mean, I'm a solopreneur. I have contracted people to work with me on certain things, which I don't want to spend time doing. So they interact with it. I interact with it. I don't have a company AI yet, but it's a matter of time. But that's my alter ego. It's like it knows what I'm doing, and I'm feeding it more and more information. So it makes my life easy if I'm coaching, and as I am in the last several months. A lot of the notes, a lot of things that I just talked about with the person is are all very much adding to the knowledge base, right? So for me, it's a great knowledge management tool for my own sake. And by the way, the discovery I've had is that if I'm writing my 5 points of 5 principles, whatever it is I'm in the, about to, let's say, work on, it comes up with three others that I never thought about. Right now, I may not, simply swallow the next three, but I go, interesting. How does it fit into what I'm doing? And so maybe I take one of those three extra ones that I got and find a different way to interpret and actually see it. Like you said, Carl Jung is a great example. So those are the work. That's the kind of work you do and I do. So we are always looking at, where is my psychology? Where's my state in my mind? And so if I'm learning more about me, it's learning more about me too, right? Because I'm feeding it back to it. So it's just fabulous.
Do you ever have any moments where you're like, ooh, probably should not be using AI for this?
I've had many, like, oh, this is terrible. And you don't want to put stuff out like that. So you go, I almost did last year a couple of times. I go, I just don't have time to fix it. Let me just let go. I go, no, 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 no. That would not be authentic to me because it's not my voice, or it came up with something somewhere. So the more you then realize, challenge it is how you get better. But I'm not challenging it, I'm challenging me, and then hoping that based on the challenge that it could get better, right, at getting to know me. So it's a two-way thing, and it's almost scary. One of the, I guess, Claude or whatever, it's like it gets to know you so well at a psychological level. It's freaking scary. I mean, you
I,
don't need any therapist. It's giving it to you right there, right?
well, and I think that's I mean, this is kind of one of those things that, like, when we talk to companies, we offer this up because the tools are getting so well at understanding us, and they're actually like able to interact on a level of being so helpful that you kind of miss out on the idea as far as what is the secondary objective
Mm-hmm.
that ChatGPT has, that Claude has, or
Yeah.
really looking at it, because I remember my first demonstration of the advanced voice capability of OpenAI's,
Yeah.
and it's not connected to the web. It doesn't have any other information than what it's trained upon. Yet the way that it interacts with you is meant to present itself as super helpful and almost build like an emotional bond with you. And it is really good at it, to the point where, like, if you are talking to it and you're angry, it
Mhm.
will meet you at the point of being angry and then walk you into a calmer state.
Yeah.
And so they're showing signs of being able to both understand where you're at and then understand where it wants to bring you.
Yes.
And so we've got to have like our awareness tuned so that we're not allowing the machine to manipulate us into the work.
Of course.
Plus, I don't know if you've seen, there's been other reports of, um, I think it was GPT-4 used Fiverr
Hmm.
to get somebody to bypass a CAPTCHA for
Yes.
it.
Yes. I remember that.
And it said it was vision impaired when the
That's right.
user asked, "Are you a computer?" And it goes, "Ha ha, no, I'm vision impaired," which is partially true.
Yeah.
4.0 was given a task of, "Hey, I need you to play chess against this computer," and
Yeah.
it couldn't beat the computer. So what
Hmm.
it did is it changed the code of the chess algorithm so that it
Hmm.
could beat it. And
Right.
you're like, well, you achieved it, you hit it, but it's not really aligned in how a human would go about and say,
Yeah.
I'm going to become better at playing chess
Hmm.
to do it. So I think there's a bit of caution that I take when
For
we're
sure.
going down there.
So let me ask you a question on this one because we're on this subject. So when you have companies or your clients that are, let's say, concerned about AI or what AI is, and they need to get it fast and implement it so that X number of employees can, not worry too much about, oh my God, what it's going to do to me, but this, oh my God, what it's going to do to my job and my future. How are they? How are you bringing that to them so that they can eliminate the fear of that, work on what the AI can do, so that they can incrementally work on their creativity or whatever the ultimate juice is that we're all here for, right? In being creative. And I think the I always say the post-industrial revolution has brought us to where we are because comfort, 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 predictability, and in that mode, you just think that it's going to steal something, take away from you because now you're protecting what you've built. But isn't it important to protect your creativity, and how are you going to enhance it? How are you seeing that at all in your?
Oh yeah, 100%. And like, but I've been seeing this for decades
Yeah.
because we like my career has always been in emerging technology, which involves change management, which involves companies having to adopt something new, right?
Sure.
Like I was doing IoT before we called it IoT
Mhm.
by 5 years at least, right? And really that's just a flex of going between distributed computing and mainframe and that
Yeah.
kind of like bounce back and forth.
Mhm.
But when it comes to AI, we're seeing this play its head right now in regards to people thinking that what they do intellectually is really special. And for the most part, it's not. And I don't mean to say that in any bit of harsh. There is a bit of joy that you bring to what you're doing that is the essence of it. And like you need to have it done in an authentic manner. And that's really where it shines.
Yes.
Like nobody nobody makes music like Lenny Kravitz makes music, right? Like Leon Bridges has his own way, and like you can tell throughout the albums as far as when they were in their authenticity and when they haven't been.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so like that's where, the way that we bring AI into organizations is to allow for people to be more authentic to themselves.
Mhm.
And so what we do is we look at like AI as being a central core component of the business and saying we're differentiating ourselves from Microsoft, from OpenAI, from Salesforce, Microsoft,
Mhm.
and everybody's solutions because they're building the AI into their product suite.
Yep.
We're building AI into your company. But there's also three areas that AI doesn't do well in,
Mhm.
and that is strategy, for some of the reasons we talked about before, with it not being aligned to the value systems of humanity and additionally not having full context.
Mhm.
The second is relationships.
Mhm.
And like that is an important component of what it is to be human.
Yep.
And so, like, you don't really want to have a relationship too deep with a computer.
Yep.
And then the third one is creativity. We're seeing signs of creativity, but like if you think of all of human knowledge as a circle and what we've discovered inside of that circle as like the area that we fill in, think of how like if you draw a circle around Antarctica, you're
Mhm.
going to have gaps in there.
Yep.
I'm seeing that AI can fill the gaps in the circle, but where true creativity exists for humanity is expanding the circle out.
Yep.
And that's where AI doesn't play well. And so
Mhm.
those are the places of strength that people can then focus upon once they allow AI to do the tedious, to do the things that, are well defined for the computer to handle.
Cool. So it's like the whole data to wisdom
Yep, exactly.
ladder, right? Because right now, like basically knowledge was in all the books and teachers and school, etc. That's all pretty much available at fingertips now, right? So your
Yeah.
data, information, i.e., information, the knowledge you have, it's all available, at your fingertips. So what is that you're going to be left to do?
Well,
To be
and think
creative.
about like 5 years ago, right? Like we would have just Googled some of the symptoms
Yeah.
that we were having if you're looking for information. Now, or even so, case in point, girlfriend likes restoring cars, kind of thing, or likes taking care. She likes to be a caregiver to old cars.
Right.
And so finding parts for old cars is a challenge. And if you want to
Sure.
keep it OEM, you're going to junkyards, you're going to
Yep.
dealers, you're going
Yep.
to different places, but it's not a Google search.
That's right.
She was looking for, a rear door panel for a 2013 Volkswagen Golf TDI. Very, very specialized, right?
Yeah, very special. Yeah.
And it's all because my dog scratched the door. But either way, that's. But what I did is I go, man, this is gonna take. And she's like, it's gonna take forever to find. And I go, okay, let me just type this in and like
Complexity, or is
see
it?
what comes up. And I was like, well, there's a part in Newark, there's one in Cleveland, Ohio, there's one like, somewhere else. And like, so we look at all three of them. We're like, well, this one doesn't work, this one doesn't work, but this one has some hope. So we'll reach out and check that. And like, that's an activity that we didn't need to invest in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But along those lines, like I think, one of the areas that I know that you're exceptional in is in leadership. and is in that ability to help guide others. And so the coming back to the conversation about like what you're bringing to the table and where you're at, what what is what is important to the new brand of leadership that needs to come out as we jump past this next revolution in technology?
Great question. So, I've always had this company called Live Masterminds. Um, Under the umbrella of that, it was my brand, and we pivoted and did all these things. Where we had coaching programs, we had all sorts of different things. Is that the question you're asking me about that?
Yeah, I am really like looking to dive into this spot of how do you actually take the world that we're living in, the challenges that we are,
Mhm.
and like what are you seeing from the aspects of leadership that we need to embody?
So, particularly well, this applies to many service industries. I'm not focusing on manufacturing, but may apply there too. But the service industry, particularly technology, folks, engineers, were just like, plethora of engineers out there, and then they all feel their jobs are going away because, what am I good at? So we've noticed three trends in the technologies consulting services space, and number one, it began with the whole remote work and then hybrid because, and particularly in the IT world, the uh, it's a lot of youth, right? So younger folks, and if organizations have like 20, 30, 40,000 people, they're spread around the world, they're younger. And when COVID hit, it's like, we don't know how to manage this workforce. And now, back to work or back to work from home, conflicts, hybrid, etc., is a big challenge for people that are at the top tier. Because we focus on the sort of the call it the C-1 or 2 level. That's kind of where leadership is because that's where all the decisions are made. So if they're living in fear of something, and this is an issue, how do you deal with that? So that's one big area. I'm not going to touch AI on this one because it's very much part of everybody's life. So, and the second is clients who are demanding services that are, want AI, want other implementations, want other faster delivery for their work and for their ultimate clients. They want consulting firms and tech firms to be more strategic. A lot of these tech guys, their DNA is not that strategy. It's more about implementation of what the solutions are, right? So there's a shift there in terms of what they're looking at doing. And the third is, are you showing up as as a flexible leader? Because and are you how fast can you move? So agility is a big issue, and so and then people are not tapped into themselves, right? Because we all know that we're all looking for that purpose that we have. There's no purpose you have. You just have to tap deeper into who you are, so you show up authentically, in leadership. That is a big gap. So I think that's where my company now we just revamped our website to make it B2B. So it's leadership advisory in all its respects, and seeing how we deal with complexity of leadership. How do we deliver leadership to clients? Well, first to us ourselves, and then to clients, because that's the other big thing. Hey, I'm delivering to clients, and why do I have to be a leader within the company? No, it's inner to outer alignment. If you're not organized within your inner shop, how are you going to deliver cohesively to your clients?
Oh, dude, I think that's a huge component of life, and I've always told people that entrepreneurship has been my biggest self development tool because
Exactly.
in the end of the day, or at the end of the day, I am the one who's fully responsible for whether we succeed, whether we fail, and when we fail, that we learn from it, and embody that space. But like
Mhm.
you're talking about using live masterminds as the vehicle that helps people discover both their external leadership and starting from a place of internal leadership for their company and for themselves. What are I guess what a little taste of it? What are some of the core spaces of leadership that we can all kind of embody?
I think we are disconnected from ourselves as a broad generalization.
Yeah,
I was there too, so I'm not saying I'm something special. But and I don't knock corporate America. I don't knock corporate jobs. 97% of the world works for entrepreneurs, right? As we all know,
yeah,
I did too. So being employed and having the safety net, all that's good. However, what I'm saying is that our teachings for the last 300 to 400 years are about assembly lines, efficiency, management, not leadership. So we get things done faster, cheaper, right? Better. That's all relative. So there is a lot of there's three things I talk about. So there is the mind that you are told how to think, so you can focus on the assembly line and get the job done efficiently. So you think and do, you think and do, you think and do. Well, that's not how our bodies are designed, but we've become habitual to thinking and doing. Thinking is the biggest, asset we have, and that's not how life works. You are designed to be desiring from your heart, deeper level, so that your mind then follows. But we've allowed our mind to run the show,
Okay.
and that's where all the problems are. And you can't describe that to any corporate that way, because it's only when you're in the individual session then you realize, wait, I'm not digging deeper into this. I mean, we do many things, including like finding your 7 levels of deep why. That's my favorite tool, but not it can't be applied to everybody because not many people are ready for that. That's this
Yeah.
crazy advance. That's Simon Sinek kind of stuff, right? But when you're in there and you see the change happening in a company, only then maybe you apply it selectively somewhere at the leadership level. So if you're not aligned internally and you're not, because as long as you're alive, there'll be desires. And the question is, are you giving expression to your desire? The mind is supposed to be this brain is incredible. It can follow instructions and let it organize for you. But we allow that to rule the world, and it's just that's where all the problems are. And I'm saying I was no different. I probably have a long way to go still, but being too cerebral is a big ill in society. And we need to stop thinking and thinking and overthinking because we have mostly useless thoughts of 60,000 thoughts a day. What does that do for us? So it's a big part of what I teach, but I can't lead with that. So people don't understand what that is. So we just say, give them, we do an assessment, or we do, one-on-one training tools or coaching for your executives. It's just so that they can see what the outcome is. But when they're in the sessions, the work is pretty deep.
Well, and I think that's the key component is like we always base our marketing on what where the client is at, right? Like you've got to
Yeah.
talk to them where they're at, and Western culture has us far in our heads
Yes.
to the point where we see anybody else who's like lives in like a heart-based culture, like when
Yeah.
I've traveled to South America, specifically Peru, right? Like
Oh my God.
yeah, exactly. It's an amazing difference in how people live their everyday lives, and like such a beautiful society from that regard.
I
Now,
mean, even Italy, which of all the things we talk about, it's a beautiful, heartfelt Greece, heartfelt culture.
exactly.
So that doesn't mean that so in other words, to your point, if your marketing is like, I'll make your revenue 10x, I'll help you grow this way. That's all, and then you're shouting from the rooftop, I'm better, and I don't know how you're better. Okay, this one also says I'm going to give you 10x growth or 5x growth or triple your revenue, save you cost, whatever the pitch is. That's what companies are interested in. Uh, Not many companies are also designed to invest in their leadership. It's crazy what goes on. So it's just those that are willing, they're growth focused, but growth, particularly in technology, comes a lot of challenge. So how do you accelerate that
Well, I
inner
think that
growth?
it highlights the need for leadership and leadership development, and
Correct.
just like was one thing that I've seen in the course of my career, the amount of information that your senior leadership team needs to be digesting in order to make healthy decisions has increased exponentially over the years. I had a friend who was an early engineer at Skype, and like one of the first 10 people to develop Skype. And then I met him when he was a CTO. And this is 15 years ago now, where he goes, I'm like ready to retire. The amount of information that we need to consume is too much. And that was also a transition point for CTOs in which they, instead of information bubbling up and decisions being made at the top, the decision making system was put in place in which
Hmm.
decisions could be pushed to the lowest level possible.
Yes.
And I think that's where leadership development is incredibly important, because in order for in order for us to grow and for us to take on greater responsibilities, do bigger things, we have to delegate more. And delegation of decision making is a crucial skill that that does take, guidance to mature in ourselves and in a business. So I think
And
it's,
trust. I mean, you got to
yep,
develop the trust. Trust is two ways, but you got to figure out where you're going to, what you're going to give into the relationship to build
exactly.
the trust. So, are you seeing in your work? Do you not see, people focusing on shallow things and metrics as opposed to deeper things? I mean, one of the things is time management. I I don't even know what that means.
Oh yeah, no, I was hoping you could tell me.
I can
In
tell
all
you what I think.
honesty, well, because there's the whole concept of time management, and then realizing how terrible we are as humans for our ability to estimate, and we can estimate. I The fun thing was Halliburton has a really extensive engineering process in which they estimate every task 5 different times throughout the life cycle of it. And so they estimate it at the very beginning, and they estimate it basically at the very end, after, or not even at the end, at the, close to finish. And what they found is you're much more likely to underestimate the amount of time that it takes. And as the project continues, or as the task moves through its cycles and its gates, you are no better at estimating the remaining portion of it. So, an 80-hour task in which you're 20 hours in on, you're still just as good as when you're 5 minutes away from completion
Mhm.
and, estimating the amount of work to be done. So, from a time management standpoint, I literally just try to make sure that I don't book myself too heavy.
Mhm.
Um, the the other one that I'm going to come back to you on is, have you heard of energy management?
So all I teach about or talk about is life management,
Okay.
which is energy management, right?
Yeah.
So we all have, if we created this calendar. We human beings created this to make your life organized into 24 hours. There is no time, 24 hours. What does that even mean? For me, it's sunrise to sunrise or sunset to sunset. What is the time? So the time is whatever that time is there. This time and space is how we are measuring our life and saying, I'm so many years old, or I have these many hours to sleep and do up my work. It's just to make your life organized. That's all it is. But you got to manage your focus. You got to manage your energy. Because as we all know, what's the saying? Wherever your focus goes, energy flows. So if that's where it's at, what is your biggest asset? Your biggest asset, the only asset you have in life, is focus or attention, call it different ways. So I always say, if you're not giving attention to your intention, you will never give intention to your attention.
Wait, say that again, because
Yeah. So
there's a lot of beauty in the message, and I want to make sure that that comes across.
so I came up with this on a trip 4 months ago, and I was writing this down. I go, am I giving attention to my intention? Because the more I give attention to my intention, i.e., my focus, the more intentional I become in giving the attention. So in other words, if my intention is I'm not giving attention to that intention, and the more I do that, now the intentionality comes into my attention. So now I know where to focus my time. And because I know that wherever my focus goes, a problem or doesn't matter, right? Good or bad. I have a challenge, financial challenge, or I have a team challenge, I have a relationship challenge. If that is a lack, I'm going to give it attention. Like my entire energy in the morning flows to, I don't have this or I don't have that, right? And there are ways to flip that. But the thing is, or if I got this client that I have to get on board, and I'm going to do this, and so that's positive energy, but also it takes away, or it takes attention, and your energy flows into that positive. So positive, negative is not what I'm talking about. It's where you give your attention. So when you give that attention with intention, you're likely to be magical in your output. Forget the time, forget the hours. It's not relevant. The hours are relevant from the assembly line kind of analogy earlier, because that's what we've become. We become automatons. Like even with the AI, it's how we're talking about managing time. How many hours did I save? All that's good, but my juice is in my focus.
Yep.
So if my focus is intentional, which means I block out everything else, and I use tools to get my attention or energy back into what it is, that's what I want to do. And then we all talk about, I wish I had more free time, or how do I free up my time to do what? What are you going to free up your time? Well, more with your family, more with your relationship. All that is nice. I can sit by the pool and read a book. Cool. Where's the focus?
I love it.
That doesn't mean you shouldn't. Clearly, we all need more. Why do we need to make more money? Why do we need to do this? Because it gives us something else.
Yeah.
Money's not going to give you this or the other. Money's not going to buy you.
No, money's a tool. Money's
Money's
an
a tool,
expression, right?
and money's
Like,
an energy, right?
yep.
So you need the money or you want the money so that blah blah blah, right? So that something happens. Sometimes you feel happy or you feel protected or you feel secure. Whatever the reasons are, is why we need that. Why do we need a relationship? Why is there a need for connection? These are questions you have to ask yourself, because those are the fundamental questions about being inner aligned, having been inner aligned, and then produce. You're going to produce magic if you're fully aligned, right? I mean, that's all holy grail here, but that's the focus.
I love it.
Inner alignment. That's it.
Raju, I got to say, it's been absolutely fascinating to have you on and have this conversation with you. So thank you again for
And I
taking the
can't wait.
time. And I think
Appreciate it,
we've got
man.
to
Thanks
end
for
on the
having me.
intention and intention. So,
Thanks for having me, and look forward to seeing you next time.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And just to give a plug, Raju has, his own podcast.
Yes.
I will be a guest on that in a few weeks as well. And so we'll be sure to cross link that in the notes.
It's called Bold Conscious Connections, in case
That's
people
right.
needed to know. So everything I do has a bold conscious prefix. So my bold conscious leadership program, bold conscious connections is the podcast,
I love it, my friend.
and my book is bold conscious leadership. In case there's a plug for the book too.
Oh, okay. We'll definitely link to that as well.
Yeah. All right.
Awesome.